guns, murder, sex. Yeah, this video isn't getting monetized, is it? Fuck. A staggering 80% of the true crime audience is female, and I kinda suspect a large amount of the 20-ish% are watching with one of the 80%. I genuinely don't understand the appeal of spending my free time watching a TV show about the worst humanity has to offer. Maybe I'm the weirdo, but in any case, it makes it more interesting for me that not only are there so many people interested, but, well, you read the video title, let's get to theorizing. The video is going to feature a lot of conjecture, but let's get one thing out of the way first. Ladies, don't lie to yourselves. It's not to learn the signs. I'm not saying women don't fear criminals. Hell, I know some who've worked themselves into a state of paranoia due to their crime obsession. We will touch on that aspect throughout, but I don't believe it to be the reason you would initially start watching. Maybe it's justification for a conscious mind, but it's not the allure that got you to watch in the first place. Do you know how I know? Picture the scene. A clerk, bracing himself, preparing to be swarmed. There are queues stretching as far as the eye can see of women, giddy with anticipation. He takes one last deep breath and opens the door. Instantly, he's swarmed by a crowd, making Black Friday look like a Victorian royal banquet. The violence and bloodlust is terrifying. The frontrunners of this flustered mob triumphantly snatch their prize, the very latest health and safety pamphlets. How to tell if you have a gas leak, how to protect against being scammed, and the most prized possession of all, the signs that a criminal's about to attack you. I don't think I've seen that particular movie. Facetious story aside, there are definitely more effective ways to get the information if that's what people were really after. Moreover, if you're looking for safety information, you only need it once. I don't see any podcasts about buckling your seatbelt and all the cases where somebody didn't buckle their seatbelt and how it played out. I just don't believe that it's why somebody would start watching. For the same reason nobody cares about health and safety pamphlets. Informative? Perhaps. But not entertaining, not interesting, not alluring. Perhaps an ancillary benefit, but definitely not the fundamental motivating factor that could explain the fascination. So I've had a little hunt around various psychology sites, and I'd like to quickly point out how amusing it is to watch many of the people discussing the matter bend over backwards to avoid addressing any potentially dark pathology at play here. While horrible men like violent video games and adult films because they are disgusting degenerates. Angelic women like true crime because they're empathetic and it's exciting. Now, I don't want to make this some nonsense man versus woman thing. I just find the difference in coverage hilarious. But going back to the point, my first question is, why exciting? The idea of thrilling escapism is one thing in fictional works, but this stuff really happened. Now maybe you think I'm just being a pedantic spoilsport, but imagine if someone you know told you that they found listening to a true story of a tsunami or an earthquake killing people exciting. Presumably you'd be, let's be generous and say, unimpressed. Fictional tales are one thing, as at least they're pure fantasy, but regaling horrific true events, well, isn't. Murder mysteries obviously have that guessing element to drive suspense, but that can't be true of true crime. Or at least not all of it. Perhaps with some lesser known or unsolved cases they could be framed this way, but not the well-known ones. You know who done it, you know how they did it, you know the whole story. Not much mystery about who done it in cases that are named after the killer, is there? The Ted Bundy case, I wonder who did it. Maybe it's Jiminy Cockthroat. So even if you can make the mystery argument for some, you certainly can't for others. And yet again, we lack a core reason to be interested that can apply to all cases. So let's circle back to empathy. It's reported that many women feel empathy towards victims, especially when they're female. I asked my psychologist wife, and her theory is that it relates to the overall mood of the person watching. In much the same way that a person may play a sad song or watch a sad movie when they themselves are sad, she thinks people may watch true crime when they themselves are anxious, depressed, or afraid. And I've seen other arguments regarding the feeling of fear somewhat being enjoyable when I guess it's regulated. This is perhaps a way to face your fears in a controlled environment. Unfortunately, my real-world experience seems to indicate the opposite is true. Edinburgh University's criminologist Dr. Gemma Flynn says, "There's something self-perpetuating about a true crime media which claims to serve a demand, but in fact is contributing to a misconception that violent victimization of women is likely and imminent. Really, if we were to follow the data on this issue, women should be walking men home at night. But certain forms of true crime that focus on serial killers and random acts of violence against women send the message that women cannot move through the world with the same freedom as men. Ironically, this fear is both perpetuated by true crime and may also be driving women towards this form of media. I mentioned the theme of a certain paranoia at the start, and honestly I do see this as a real world harm of these stories. It's an interesting and obviously bad side effect of the popularity of the genre. I come back to the initial pitch. I'm going to watch a show about someone like me getting brutally killed. That sounds awful? Why would you want to do that? Surely seeing someone like you have nice things happen to them instead would be infinitely more appealing. Perhaps once you're already a fan, I could see it, in much the same way as the sad songs. To play a sad song, you must know and like the song in the first place. That works if you're already a fan, not really if you don't know how the song would make you feel beforehand. Much like Looking for Signs, this may be an extra layer, but it doesn't answer the fundamental question of what drives the fixation with true crime in the first place. It's also reported that there is empathy not only towards the victim, but the perpetrator. There's a clear and deep interest in trying to understand the psychology of the criminal, perhaps in some cases to understand how they could do such a thing. Others think that a monster understood is less of a monster, and so people look to understand the mindset of the criminal. Some people think it's because the criminal lashed out in ways that the viewer may harbour a fantasy of. You may feel like killing your boss, but these people actually did. The word I've used throughout is allure, but perhaps the real word is taboo. You're not supposed to sympathise with these people, obviously, yet some dark corner of people's minds seem drawn to them. Perhaps it's that they do what society constrains others from doing. Perhaps it's something else. There's another taboo element for some. Not only is there interest in this person, but attraction. Or to give it its proper name, you have no idea how many times I've botched saying this, hybristophilia, to be attracted to criminals. Hooray! We've got to the elephant in the room. Yes, there are women who are attracted to serial killers in the most illogical case of I can fix him you're ever going to find. I'm not kidding, some women who married serial killers literally give this as a reason. It's like the I like bad boys taken to the extreme. I should point out that according to psychologist Leon F. Seltzer, many women who speak to therapists about attraction to such men are fully aware these men are not even remotely good candidates to be a partner, but admit strong attraction to them nevertheless. Ted Bundy had fans. Yes, fans of a man who murdered at least 30 women after assaulting them, filling up his courtroom at trial. He received hundreds of love letters while in prison and married a woman in court while she was testifying. Dahmer's female fans sent love letters, money, and other gifts in prison, despite him being a gay cannibal. Incidentally, if you'd like to send me any gifts, you can check out my Ko-Fi or Patreon. Look, I thought of the worst transition ever, and I just had to do it. The next time a friend asks me for tips for our online dating profile, I'm gonna tell him to identify as a gay cannibal, and watch the matches just roll in. There's a long list of examples of hybristophilia in what I personally find to be the most horrifying revelation since knowing old ladies were fingering through 50 Shades. Not because of the content, but because of the writing. My face went the colour of the Communist Manifesto. Fucking just no. Reasons given for this attraction include the risk involved, the taboo, and the desire to tame them. I'm telling you, it's I can fix him. Apparently some see the little boy the killer once was and seek to nurture him in a sort of mothering instinct. And then there's a theory from evolutionary psychology that women equate these men to dominant alpha male types who would be able to protect their children. Because who would make a safer dad than someone who kills people for fun? I wonder if the kid will go into the family business. The next time a gormless dweeb like Andrew Tate calls himself an alpha, you can just think, nah, you're not Bundy, mate. Incidentally, I'd wager a very large crossover here with women who are attracted to vampires. Just gonna throw that unsubstantiated thought out there. No matter how insane I may find it, people do seem to get off on this, whether it be the act or the person doing it. My theory would be heavily related to the thought of taboo, a total break for the mundane, a sort of power fantasy. The desire for the dangerous man who makes his own rules is supposedly the main theme in most erotic material for women. The aforementioned 50 Shades shows the success of that idea. What if the real problem of Western society is that women keep getting attracted to, and therefore having children with, asshole men, and therefore the world is full of asshole men and asshole attracted women? What if the Indians were right all along and arranged marriage is the way forward? Women can't make bad relationship choices if their dad gets to make bad relationship choices for them. Better than the dad, maybe it should be me, as arbiter of all things, and I shall rank men on a worthiness score. I can already think of who's going straight to the bottom. Get fucked, Fred. I'm about to start the worst dictatorship ever. If anyone's taking that last paragraph seriously at any point, I'm as worried about you as I am about the hybristophiliacs. So is primal attraction to these seemingly dominant men the reason women watch true crime? Honestly, I'm not sold. Sure, some women are attracted to these guys, but unless the psychosis is far more widespread than I'd like to imagine, surely it can't account for all of them. I really hope. Please? Maybe it really comes down to amateur psychology and armchair detectives, a fascination with trying to understand how these nutjobs' brains work, or rather what's wrong with them, to view them as extreme case studies of what humans are capable of. Perhaps it is the mirroring of real life emotion, perhaps it's schadenfreude. My life might be bad, but at least I'm not being murdered. Maybe it's the dark allure, maybe it's the fancy of what it would be like to kill, maybe it's a bizarre mixture of all of the elements discussed. And incidentally, the next time I hear some PTA mother type crying about video games being violent, I'm going to ask them about their Netflix history. The kid's better off with the game, I promise you. If you ask me to pick one angle to say this is the underlying reason why most women are drawn to true crime, I probably would go for the allure. No other theory I've found seems to be able to encompass the initial attraction to the genre in a way that can explain its popularity, especially when compared to other media that should in theory be more palatable. Fictional stories should in theory cover most bases for almost everything else. The biggest standout factor of true crime is that it's true. These are real stories, and it's precisely how unpalatable they should be that I believe points us towards taboo being the number one factor. Really though, what I want to see is an open and honest discussion. As I mentioned, it seems much of the online discourse is desperate to avoid certain elements of it because fear of, I don't know, maybe it's a door they just don't want to open. If you stare into the abyss, it stares back at you, etc. It's nicer to say that people like a thing for more pleasant reasons. In any case, I'm interested to see what people think on this. Why is there a gender divide? How do you feel about the true crime genre's enduring popularity? Why are so many women in particular drawn to it? After the last video, I thought I'd do something a little bit more cheery, and somehow we got this. So, yeah. Next time I'll do something really funny, like a fire at an orphanage or a plague. Alright, yeah, like and subscribe and everything. Okay, bye.